Am I the a-hole for ending a relationship because she wants full details of my wealth after 2 months of being together? A couple of my friends thought that I acted wrongly here. I'm curious what other people think. I, 40 male, just ended a 2-month relationship with my now ex, 39 female. I'll call her ex. I ended it because she pestered me to know about my finances. Despite me saying that I wasn't comfortable letting her know something like that so early, both of us were divorced once already, and we were both the person who asked for the divorce. Neither divorce was terrible. We both divorced for emotional differences. I tried to keep my finances on the down low for obvious reasons. I've lost a few friendships and had to break contact with more than one family member due to money, people who asked for help and blew it. But this is pretty easy to do because I don't live lavishly. I ride a bike most of the time and I live in a relatively modest house. However, I don't work currently, aside from some volunteer work, so that's the one thing that stands out. I made some really good, lucky financial choices early in my life. I bought a house at 17 with money I saved from a young age. My dad arranged the mortgage under his name, but I paid everything and took over the mortgage when I was old enough. And I worked hard to pay off the mortgage by the time I was 24. Long story short, this gave me a serious advantage with finances in my 20s, and I made a lot of investments, some of which paid off big time in the past few years. Crypto. Today I don't work, but I'm not decided on being retired. I have some projects that I'm thinking of turning into a business. When X and I met, finances weren't discussed at all, and she seemed really down to earth. She even said a few times that money doesn't matter to her. I tried my best to keep my finances hidden from her because I didn't want to have an inaccurate sense of her feelings for me. After being together for about 3 weeks, the subject of my finances came up because of the fact that I don't work. I told her about my young home ownership and having my mortgage paid off, and that I have enough money to not work. I shared with her the general sources of my income, but I refused to tell her how much money I had, which was what she wanted to know. I told her that was a boundary that I was setting, and I didn't want to share that kind of specific info. From that point, she seemed very fixated on finances, and her personality started changing. She constantly talked about lavish things she wants to do, like expensive trips, etc. And most of all, she did not give up on the questions about my finances. This continued consistently, and she would ask me specifically how much money I had and how much I had invested, etc. It almost became an argument once. She raised her voice about it and quickly cooled herself off about it and changed the subject. I wrongly told myself that cooling herself off like that was a good sign of maturity. Maybe it was. Each time she asked about it, I set a clear boundary by saying that I didn't think we were at a stage of our relationship where we should ask each other things like that. She would agree, and then slowly weasel her way back into the topic by the next time we saw each other. We weren't dating heavily, I would say. We're not teenagers who spend every waking moment together. We saw each other maybe 2 to 3 times per week, and she would spend the night occasionally, and we spent 2 entire weekends together. Maybe that's serious, but I don't think so. And we hadn't yet ever discussed moving in together, or much less marriage. So we weren't at a stage where I felt it was appropriate for us to ask each other things like that, especially when I had given her what I would consider to be enough information. Anyways, I broke things off this past weekend, and it didn't go well. She was very emotional about it, which I didn't expect considering the fact that I thought the relationship wasn't very far along. The only point I made in the breakup was that I felt like my privacy was being invaded because we had not reached any kind of relationship milestone that I would consider talking about things like finances. I told her that I could understand if we were talking about moving in together. She might want to know how financially secure I was. I talked to a few of my friends last night about the breakup. They had all met her once, and they liked her. 3 of my friends agreed that I acted immaturely, and that I shouldn't have been so secretive. One of my friends said, it's unfair to hide something like that, because everyone else at least has a ballpark idea of how much money someone makes as soon as they know what kind of job they have. And she didn't have info like that, which is unfair to her. I didn't agree with this, because it's foolish to make assumptions like that, combined with the fact that she said multiple times that money didn't matter to her. I'm curious to hear what other people think about this. Edit. Lots of people seem to be under the impression that the big issue in this relationship was that she was a gold digger. It's not that. The issue was that I was setting a boundary, and she repeatedly chose not to respect that. Now for the top comments. Not the a-hole. Real talk here, friend. If she asked you once to ensure that you aren't El Chapo's long-lost cousin, I get that, especially because you don't need to work for right now. That's fair. But to keep fixating on what she would like to do with your money? Nah, hard pass. Time to move on. I generally agree, but there's also the possibility that she was concerned he was going to run out of money and she'd be footing the bill for things if their relationship evolved. For all we know, she's had experiences with bum dudes that don't work and also don't have much money. Her suggesting lavish things may have been a way to get a better understanding of whether he has a lot of money or not, when asking him directly didn't work. Either way, she was out of line, or at least very poorly communicated her concern that he didn't have enough money for the future. Or maybe she was a gold digger. We'll never know. Who are these jackass friends? You have experience with people changing when they find out about your situation. She just got a hint of it and was already planning on how to spend it. Admittedly, the friends who felt this way are not my closest friends. We have a friend group of about 12 of us, and these few aren't as close to me as the rest of them. And it was really only one of them that was hard against my choice. The other two who were just like, well, I wouldn't have been so secretive. I get the sense that some of them have been burned by secrets in a relationship before, so I'm not going to judge too much. Not the a-hole. You're 40 and retired. Someone you're dating will absolutely have questions about what's going on. I think she was prying too much and you did tell her you weren't comfortable answering. But I do think you need to maybe be a little more appropriately honest here if you want to move forward with someone. I do get some gold digger vibes from her, but if you're not working, I can also see someone trying to figure out if you're not a deadbeat since you're not working. You know, it goes both ways sometimes. Maybe not this time, though. You're 40 and retired. Someone you're dating will absolutely have questions about what's going on. I definitely expect this kind of question when someone notices that I don't work. If you're not working, I can also see someone trying to figure out if you're not a deadbeat since you're not working. Indeed, but she knew that I had enough money to live from the proceeds of my investments. And she knew that I volunteer for non-profit orgs. I didn't share this in my post, but knew that I work as CFO for 2 different nonprofits, and I do some manual labor work for a local charity that provides food for low-income families. I also keep my house very clean. I exercise often. I bike as my main source of transportation. There definitely wasn't a reason to suspect I was a deadbeat or lazy, etc. Next story. Am I the a-hole for not claiming my friend's mistake on my insurance? I, 26 female, and my friend from college, 26 female, both moved into the same apartment building. She lives on the floor above mine. One weekend, she put me along with a bunch of our mutual friends in a group chat because she wanted to have a barbecue on our roof. She has hosted many before, but this would be the first one I ever attended. Because I don't eat red meat, I did not eat anything that was cooked on the grill, and only brought chips, a bottle, and paper plates. When the day was over, the group of us went downstairs to watch a reality show. My friend who lives in my building and the girl who owned the grill discussed that they would leave the grill to cool off. Once the reality show was over, I went back to my apartment and went to sleep. The next day, everyone in my building receives an email saying that there was a fire on the roof last night because someone dumped coals in the trash can on the roof and they relit due to the wind. I took a screenshot of the email and sent it to my friend, who then put it in the group chat of everyone. Her and our other friend who owned the grill told us that they decided to take the grill home the same day because they didn't want to have to come back and get it the next day. So the girl in my building gave the grill owner her keys to go get the grill on the roof. And the grill owner decided that it would be the best thing to just toss the coals into the trash can on the roof. Our building requires multiple key taps to get on and off the roof, and they also have cameras. So they immediately told my friend in my building she was responsible since it was her guest using her keys. A week later, my friend came to me and asked me to put it on my insurance, since she nor the grill owner had renter's insurance. I spoke with a few lawyers and my old insurance agent, and they all said that this would be fraud. So I told my friend I did not feel comfortable doing so. Another week goes by and she asked me again. Because she believed that she would have to go bankrupt over the situation, she did not. I again said no because I did not feel comfortable and reiterated that I was told that this would be fraud. From then, she started to run a smear campaign, saying that I was the bad friend, and all of our friend group stopped talking to me because they said that I should have at least tried to put it on my insurance. They now all want me to apologize to all of them and work for their friendship again, since they believe that I was in the wrong, but I feel like I didn't do any wrong. So, was I the a-hole? Wow, sounds like you just cut a bunch of cancer out of your life. Congratulations! Your lawyers told you it's fraud. Why haven't you said those words to these people? If they still want you to commit fraud, explain to them you're not a stupid criminal, and it's not your fault someone couldn't use common sense handling a grill and hot coals. They made these plans, they planned poorly, they damaged the roof, and they're responsible. Not one of those incredibly stupid, short-sighted decisions involved you. Furthermore, doesn't your complex make you provide insurance before moving in? She just didn't get any, and wants other people to cover her irresponsibility? I don't know what's worse here, dumping smoldering coals into a trash can you know is filled with flammable material knowingly, or trying to blame the woman who didn't eat anything off the damn grill because she won't cover your stupidity. You're not the a-hole in any way. Those two girls owe you an apology first, then the rest can apologize for their sheep behavior. They're all in the wrong. Just to clarify, I did tell them what the lawyers and old agents said, and the girl got mad at one of our other friend because their mom was one of the lawyers I spoke with. They're only mad at themselves because you refused to play their game. The only real loser would be you if you did actually do that. F that. I've done some shady stuffs, but don't mess with insurance and taxes. Also, aren't all renters required to have renter's insurance? They won't renew my lease until I prove I've renewed my insurance. My building did require proof, but we had 3 months after move-in to provide it, and they weren't strong record keepers, so they didn't follow up. Was she contacted personally or something? Did they say they know who is involved? Yes, they have her key taps on the entry to the door, and the grill owner on camera leaving her apartment, going to the roof and coming back to her apartment. Last story. Am I the a-hole for refusing to pay my boomer in-laws rent while I renovate their house, with only the option to buy half after they've died? Father-in-law inherited a house from his parents, which he has rented out for the past 20-plus years. The house has not been maintained in this time and is now in need of serious renovation. Dear husband and brother-in-law were always told they would inherit the house like he did. Mother-in-law and father-in-law have their own property that has been mortgage-free for years. Until last year, me and dear husband were living overseas, as were my brother-in-law and his wife. They are settled overseas and will not return to the UK. We, however, are now settling here. Luckily, father-in-law's spare house was free when we arrived home and moved in. The kitchen had disintegrated, ceilings had come down, there was damp on the walls. Legally, there was no way they could have re-rented it. We have been working hard to get the house back into a decent standard. We've been cleaning, plastering, decorating, etc. We had expressed to mother-in-law and father-in-law that we would like to stay in the house permanently and make it into a proper family home. The house needs about £100,000 worth of renovations. We were hoping that father-in-law would agree to sign the house over to brother-in-law and dear husband now, and I would buy brother-in-law's share. Brother-in-law isn't moving back and is also happy that we are back home to look after his parents in their old age. We understand that father-in-law gets a top-up to his pension from rent, and we're happy to continue paying this, but with our names as owners. We thought that this way, everyone got what they wanted. Father-in-law gets his pension top-up with none of the landlord responsibilities. Brother-in-law gets a cash lump sum and free elderly care for his parents. Me and dear husband get a house that we love and keep in the family. Mother-in-law and father-in-law get their grandkids around the corner from them and family to look after them in their old age. Boy, was I wrong. My in-laws have informed me that we can stay living in the house, but pay £500 a month rent until they both die, in about 20 years plus. I am welcome to spend my money on doing the renovations the house needs, but there will be no legal protection other than they will not legally kick me out, as long as me and dear husband are married. Once mother-in-law and father-in-law have both passed, the house will go to brother-in-law and dear husband. At that point, I can buy out brother-in-law, and the money I've paid in renovations will not be taken into consideration. And in the meantime, I can look after them in their old age. I didn't react well to this, and this is where I could be the a-hole. I told the father-in-law in no uncertain terms that I would not be doing this, and that me, dear husband, and the kids will buy our own place, which will be closer to dear husband's work and near better schools. We'll be about 40 minutes away from them, not too far away, but not close enough to look after their daily needs in their old age. Now everyone is upset, and apparently it's all my fault. I admit I could have handled it better, but how could they think that me paying them rent for 20 years, renovating the house, and then handing over at least £200,000 to brother-in-law when I am in my 60s was even financially possible? How do they think brother-in-law is going to be able to look after them from overseas? I had to read this a couple times to understand it all, so please correct me if I made any errors. I kind of think everyone sucks here. You, and your husband I assume, basically wanted your parents to give to your husband and his brother a house that admittedly needs a lot of work for nothing now, instead of waiting to inherit it when they die in the future. Now, I wouldn't say that this idea was wrong initially, but your in-laws are not a-holes for not wanting to do that. And you are kind of an a-hole for getting mad that they won't do that. On the flip side, your in-laws are a-holes for expecting you and your husband to move into this dilapidated house, pay rent, and pay for renovations on top of that. And in that case, I don't blame you for saying no to that and just buying something else. In my mind, this should have gone one of two ways. Either your in-laws pay to bring the house up to code or whatever, and then you and your husband rent it from them, with all of the normal tenants' rights. Or you two live there without paying rent and come to some sort of agreement about you and your husband paying for or doing renovations. But the expectation that y'all put money into renovating a house that you don't own is wild to me. That's the point of having a landlord, and just because y'all are a family doesn't change that. Edit, after more explanation from OP, not the a-hole. This isn't just the house. They also wanted OP to look after them as well. And in the meantime, I can look after them in their old age. So £500 a month rent, plus the time and costs of renovations, plus elder care. Then at the end they can pay the improved value of house to brother-in-law. Info: how does your husband feel about all this? We had to move back home so quickly because he got seriously unwell, and as a result of this illness, basically exploded mine and our kids' lives. I got us back home to his parents because I thought that would give him the best chance of recovery, alcohol addiction. During this time, mother-in-law told me, just go back to your own family. Dear husband is now 8 months sober, has his life back on track, has our relationship back on track, has his kids' lives back on track. His parents were there when we were broken, and he wants to repay them, but not on the terms they're expecting. This has caused a lot of honest conversations between us, and he is 100% behind his marriage and daughters.